Okay, so today we're going to talk about self-value, all right? And specifically, we're going to talk about what DHVs and DLVs are. So DHVs stand for demonstration of higher value, okay? We use it in verb and noun forms interchangeably. For example, keeping your promises, that is a DHV. Also, something like make sure when you're telling your story that you're DHVing. So that's how we use them. And then in contrast to DHVs, we have DLVs, and these are demonstrations of lower value. Okay, we use DLVs in the same context interchangeably between nouns and verbs, and they're literally the exact opposite of what a DHV is. Okay, so an easy way to visualize DHVs and DLVs is by imagining a DHV is a deposit of money into an account. A DLV is a withdrawal from an account. And what I mean by that is when you walk into a venue, you start off your account, which in this case is your self-value from a third-party perspective, at 0. Let's break that down real quick. So you could be a serial killer, right? And there's some random statistic that we walk past X number of serial killers, but we would never know. At the same time, in the same way, you could walk past some extremely rich person and not know because for whatever reason they don't dress or act rich. I bring up these two extremes because if you're a woman in a club or a bar and a random guy starts talking to you, you have no fucking idea who this person is. He could be rich, he could be fit, he could be a serial killer. Until she gets to know this person has not demonstrated their value either positively or negatively. And if you show signs of DLVing too much, how does she know that you're not a serial killer? So to get back, when you first walk into a venue, your value is at 0. And you have to remember that regardless of how much value you think you have, to everyone else who doesn't know your accomplishments in life, your value is 0. So when you and your buddy go to a bar and walk in, you need to demonstrate to the people in that venue that you are of high value. One catch about having high value is you can't really fake it. This is due to the fact that humans can subconsciously read body language and tone. And in fact, 60% of communication is through nonverbal body language. 30% of communication is through the tone that you use when you speak. And only 10% of communication belongs to the words that you're actually saying. Now, DHVs show people that you are someone that has characteristics of what a woman is looking for in a mate. DLVs show that women want to stay away from you. So when you walk into a venue, how do we start showing people that we are of high value and not low value? So let's start with bragging. Bragging is a DLV because you're showing off to try and get attention. People that brag are people who don't get attention. So when guys start bragging about anything really, they're telling people that they don't get enough attention on a regular basis. That they feel a need to try harder to get that attention. If I'm a high value guy and I talk to women on a regular basis, I don't feel a desperate need to show off to get a girl's attention, right? Because I get girls' attention all the time. People pick up on these things subconsciously. Now, if she asks you about something and you tell her, for example, if I say, oh, my buddies and I are here drinking to celebrate, and she says, oh, well, what are you celebrating? And then I say, oh, well, today I closed a business deal that is going to really put our startup indie game company on the map. That's completely different than saying, oh, you having a good night? And she's like, yeah. And you're like, oh, good, so am I, because I made a huge business deal today and now my friends and I are celebrating that I pulled it off. See, because now you just sound like an asshole trying to impress her. There's lots of ways to DHV and there's lots of ways to DLV. DHVs and DLVs also have sizes. So you could say something that is a small DHV, or you could say something that is a huge DLV, etc., etc. DLVs and DHVs actually stack with and against each other. And that's why I relate them to a bank account. So every time you DHV, you're putting money into that account. And every time you DLV, it takes money away from that account. And the resulting balance of that account is her idea of what your value is in her head. As much as you can technically perform a few huge DHVs, I personally run the route of trying to do as many small DHVs as possible because they do stack. So a guy could come into a bar and ask for a drink, right, from the bartender and pull out a wad of hundreds to show off how much money he has. And yeah, that could be a big DHV. And yeah, that could be good enough to get the girl sitting next to you at the bar to notice and then open you up with something like, oh, I like your jacket. But as you start talking to her, if you're not skilled at DHVing, then within that conversation, you're going to start DLVing. And when you bring down your value enough, it's going to make the fact that you have a lot of money pointless. And then if you're going to try to bring up that money again as a way of DHVing, you're going to come off as bragging, and it's actually going to just be a DLV for you. So instead, I do things like I'll walk up to a bar with my friend and I'll be talking to my friend having a good time. Having friends is a DHV. Having a good time is a DHV. And then when I order from the bartender, who I'm also friends with, the bartender and I are going to be sassy and laughing. So there's 2 more DHVs. I tell the bartender to surprise me and he goes off and makes something that will impress me, all right? Having people trying to impress you is a DHV. The bartender comes back with my drink and is in the frame of, try this because I know you'll like it. And I go, damn, that's delicious. That's why you're my favorite bartender. Now I'm complimenting his ability to make good drinks, and I'm DHVing him. I'm demonstrating that he is of high value for his skill of making drinks. And if he's high value and he's my friend, then I must have high value. So by talking him up, I'm actually helping myself DHV. Then I turn around to my friends and I'm like, bro, you gotta try this. Now I'm actively showing that I'm good enough friends with my friends that I'm sharing something I paid for. So having a friend that's stingy or doesn't like to share, or if you're that kind of person, that's a DLV. Because if you're of high value, you prefer that your friends are enjoying themselves more so than the $8 drink. So by being stingy and not sharing shows that you value an $8 drink more than your friend's happiness. This is an actual event that happened to me. I had actually been in the bar for a while. However, when I walk up to the bar with one friend, the girl sitting at the bar doesn't know me. So to her, my DHV account balance is $0 because I haven't gotten a chance to DHV or DLV in front of her. Even though I might have been DHVing for a while in a different part of the bar, such as like the pool tables. So having a friend is a DHV. Being friends with the bartender is a DHV. The bartender trying to impress me is a DHV. Me telling the bartender that he did a good job is a DHV, both for the bartender and for me, so that's technically a double DHV. When I tell him he's my favorite bartender and he responds with saying that he loves me too, that's a DHV. And then telling my friends to try my drink and they're impressed is a DHV, because I'm not just complimenting the bartender out of my ass. So right there is 6 moments that I've demonstrated that I'm a high value. One of which is a double DHV, so my DHV account balance is now $7 worth of DHV. I haven't even started talking to this girl yet. So when I notice that she's looking at me and my drink and my friends, I offer her to try it, right? Because I'm having a fun time. People go to bars and clubs to have a good time. And when they get there, they're just expecting that the night will magically just be a good time. She's sitting at the bar listening to some random guy talking to her other girlfriend. If she's more interested in me interacting with 3 people around me and we show through DHVs that we're happy people and that we're having fun without trying to impress her, then subconsciously in her mind, she wishes that she is having as much fun as we are, rather than listening to some guy try to impress her friend. So when I notice her watching how entertaining my little group is, I give her an opportunity to join us having fun by including her in on the whole drink process. And this actually happened. I offered her to try my drink and she did. And she said to the bartender, "Oh my God, I'll take one of these." That's even more DHV because now she's actually impressed. And she wants what I have, so there's another DHV. Those 2 additional DHVs are from my actions and not from me talking myself up. So they're worth more because there's the DHV of being genuine. Because if you say something and someone is skeptical, and then you prove through your actions that it's legit, that experience is genuine. And now you have demonstrated as a person that you're genuine. And when you say something, that what you say is trustworthy because it's genuine too. So those are both double DHVs. So now my account balance is at $11 worth of DHV, and I barely even talk to her. As opposed to the guy that's trying to verbally impress her friend and doesn't realize that he's probably DLVing. Now, I ended up fucking up the whole thing because the guy that was talking to her friend started some shit, and I ended up calling him out on some bullshit, and everything got crazy. But that's the example, right? We're not talking about dealing with shitty people in this podcast, just what makes DHV and DLV. The act of having fun and spreading that fun to others is DHV. Now, I didn't walk up to some random girl and tell her to try my drink. That's weird. And she doesn't know where that drink's been or what you put in that drink. When she's sitting there at the bar and she sees the bartender set my drink down in front of her eyes and I try it and both my friends try it, there's some level of safety there. And she even pulled her own straw out of her dwindling drink with a body motion and facial expression of like, mind if I try my own straw? And since I'm not the kind of person that tries to drug girls' drinks, when I say, yeah, no problem, I get it, that shows DHV because I'm not acting like somebody who's trying to drug her. She senses that I'm genuinely allowing her to experience something fun and cool. So this is an isolated event that took calibrating and DHV to pull off. I'm not recommending trying to go pick up girls at a bar by offering them your drink, okay? Don't do that. I hope that this helps distinguish what DHVs are and what DLVs are. I try to minimize my DLVs whenever I can because the simple act of not DLVing will help you so much before you get better at DHVing. I'll make future podcasts where I talk about my stories and try to break down the parts where I DHV so you can understand more solid examples of DHV and what people say to me that are DLVs and things to avoid. This podcast was essentially just to introduce the concepts of DHVs and DLVs.